Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Super-Fanta-Fi. This being a show where I talk about TV shows of the supernatural, fantasy, and/or science fictional genre. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episode of Legacies. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. This episode has Hope with her first full official day back at, the Salvatore school, and obviously everyone's kind of giving her that weird look because it's like, oh, remember, everyone remembers you now, and it's just like, all right, yeah, you're that girl that everyone forgot. Obviously, things are complicated between her and, Josie, and it's because, it's like the whole Landon situation, and Hope was kind of hoping that things would get back to normal, but not necessarily. She's goes to her room. She has a new roommate now. Instead of having a room by herself, she shares it with Alyssa. So that's a whole thing. So not everything being back the way it was, but it's interesting because that's something her and Rick are both getting adjusted to, because both of them were away from the school for a while, and now they're both having to kind of readjust, to everything. Obviously, one of the main things Rick is dealing with is the fact is that, deciding what he's going to do with Sebastian. And then there's that awkward thing of him seeing, Lizzie coming down the stairs and she's buckling up in her belt. And it's like, oh! And Lizzie's like, Dad. And he's like, what? He's like, you're late. And it's like, it's that awkward thing of he knows she was with Sebastian. And she knows he knows, but she's trying to pretend like, no. I was trying to pretend like it was something else, but they both know. And just it's this awkward situation because no father wants to know about that side of their door. It's like, because Lizzie is still his baby girl, so it's like he doesn't want to look at her that way. I'm sure as hell doesn't want to look at Josie like that either, so it's like, these are my children. I don't want to think of you being, so there's that whole thing. And so basically he has to decide what he's going to do with the whole Sebastian situation. So basically he wants to put Sebastian through some more rigorous tests to kind of see whether he should be at the school or not. So he sticks him with Landon, literally the only person in the school that he can't kill. So Landon's, and I thought it was kind of interesting thing where Landon's kind of like, yeah, kind of all I have as a Phoenix is the whole dying and coming back thing. I don't think that is all there is to Phoenix. I just don't think Landon's unlocked his potential. Because, obviously, they come from fire and stuff like that. So you'd assume that, and maybe that's something they'll get to eventually, but I would assume Landon can control fire, maybe, summon it. So I think he has some, magic to him. He just doesn't know how to access it yet. But for him, he's just kind of like, yeah, I'm a sidekick. I kind of accept that. Everyone else in the school is kind of the heroes, but I'm not. So slowly but surely, he's got to see. And they brought up something I was curious about. It's like there are multiple supernatural schools around the world. The Salvatore school is special because it's the only school that houses the 3 supernatural groups, which obviously you have Sebastian saying well, there's not just 3 supernatural groups. There's way, well, because I think he referenced there being 4. And that's the thing, because I guess because obviously she's a breed all her own, Hope being a tri-bred. I think that, but also all the other supernatural groups out there kind of fall into that category 4 of something very rare and unique, especially considering this whole Malivore situation. That's why I think maybe he was kind of referencing, or maybe just purely referencing Hope. But like I said, there's other things too, like dragons, gargoyles, or, like I said, in Hope's case, a tri-bred, a phoenix. So basically has him kick it with different groups. First, the werewolves, him and Jed, face off. Because I think Landon kind of wanted to kind of put him in his place, because he was just kind of like, oh yeah, if I was you, I'd be so worried not being able to protect the girl that I care about. It's like if Elizabeth was in danger, basically it's like, oh, I'd kick my own ass if I'd never be able to protect, trying to make Landon feel worse about himself. So turns into a dodgeball game between the vampires and werewolves, which obviously superpowers and stuff involve him dodging all over the place and the superhuman strength on both sides. But just because he has enhanced reflexes doesn't mean anything, because so do werewolves. So. But I was like, oh, how's this going to end? But it's like, oh, him and Jed are good. He's like, yeah, good game, dude. It's like, hey. And showing all right, he can kick it with the werewolves. All right. Next up is the vampires. I love, side note, the nerd in me lost my mind. It's like, you literally, and they made sure to show it, that Lizzie is reading Crisis on Infinite Earths. I'm like, shut up. You know that literally, they knew. Everyone with Legacies, they knew that timeline wise, obviously Crisis would finish up. That's just an inside joke, that's so funny and so cool. And she even makes a reference of how boring everything comes together, and they don't even remember how things were before. Boring, which is kind of, which also I guess in the grand scheme of things showed you how unique the Arrowverse's approach to that is, because obviously you had your 7 Paragons remembering, but even then, like John, Martian Manhunter, made sure that most, if not all, of like our main protagonists all now know. So it's not just the 7 Paragons. Like everyone knows, like, oh, there was a multiverse, and now it's all come together on this one Earth, but eventually it spreads out. You get the whole point I'm trying to make. So I think that was just I love that though, because you even see that he's reading that MG is reading a Flash comic book. So I thought that was just, I don't know. It's actually kind of sad because she's reading the comic books because she needs a distraction. Because basically this nerdy stuff is kind of like a cold shower because she can't get him out of her. She can't get Sebastian out of her mind. It's like talking about all the times they had sex. And I love MG being like, I don't think I'm supposed to be hearing this. And I forgot what it was. It was like, MG was like, these are like great fictions of works of fiction, and they're not meant to be, basically they're not meant to cool down your horniness, lady, and kind of walks away. I even love later on that Dorian gives him something else to read, and it's Neil Gaiman's Sandman. I'm like, what are we doing dropping this? Like what? That's so dope. I mean, I get he's nerdy, but I'm just like, what? It's just nuts to me, the comic book stuff they're dropping. I'm like, that's crazy. I mean, they've made comic book references before, but still, it was nuts to me. Because obviously MG's still dealing with this whole thing, because like, despite everything, he likes, and he still likes Lizzie. He's always liked her for a long time, and it's just, he doesn't like her, he's in love with her. And obviously this whole thing is complicated, and obviously like the witches, in particular, Alyssa's like, no, you're like the really cool vampire, MG, and if you don't like Sebastian, then we don't like him either. So they try to set up a situation to kind of get him kicked out, drops the plate of blood and everything. And it's like, she's like, oh, it was an accident. And obviously every vampire in the cafeteria starts going, edging up. And then all the werewolves edge up. And it's like, everybody just go, leave. And then, like, despite everything, Sebastian isn't losing control. But MG, being the Ripper that he is, loses control. And then Sebastian has to be the one to calm him down. Which is like, here I am. I hate you so much because I'm letting my jealousy over Lizzie kind of getting away. And I did something stupid like this. Considering the fact is, I can't control myself when it comes to this blood situation because I'm a Ripper. So it's like, it's sad, It's like, for him, I think it just made him realize, like, man, like, it's almost a thing of like, wow, you're actually better than me. It just, it probably infuriates MG even more because it's like, in that moment, I could have done so much worse, because last time he lost control like that, he literally killed Landon. So, and Landon being there was probably a reminder of that. And he's just like, I'm sorry, it's just like he let his jealousy get the best of him, and people could have gotten hurt because he lost control, and Sebastian had to be one to keep him under lock and key. So obviously kicking it with the vampires shows that, hey, Sebastian can keep his control even under circumstances of blood. And then they kick it with the witches. Obviously Elizabeth is there, Lizzie, and then Alyssa's there trying to like use his orb to kind of see like what's in his heart. And it's actually kind of sad. It's like, oh, you have fear. You're afraid that everyone's going to find out about what you've done in your past, and you'll be kicked out of the school. Which, to be fair, the name comes from obviously the Salvatore brothers, who, let's not forget, Stefan was a Ripper. He did a lot of terrible stuff in his time. And Damon, who wasn't a Ripper, who still did a lot of terrible, terrible things. So it's not like they were saints either, So, and obviously, let's not forget whose daughter is going to the school. Hope Michelson, who is the daughter of Klaus Michelson, who him and the Michelsons did a lot of damage, So it's like, not everyone's like really clean. I mean, that's even something Landon talks about later on. It's like, yeah, like Sebastian is literally no more out of control than any other student here. So, but, he kind of lost control just because all that she was saying. It's like, oh, you think like Elizabeth is too good for you, that you'll never be good enough for her. So like she's ticking all these boxes that, because this is how, it's a thing of like, you can think and feel something, but for someone to verbally say what you're feeling, and it makes it more real. So it kind of made him snap a little bit, and her seeing that side of him, he didn't want her to see that. So, Sebastian leaves, but given the opportunity, Landon does talk to, he does talk to Rick after he had talked to Sebastian, because for Sebastian, like, he wants to be with Lizzie, like Lizzie wants to be with him, and it's just the whole complicated thing of like, he talks about his past, like how his family sold him to like a ship of merchants or whatever, and then like it was a terrible experience, and every time they went to port, he'd run away, but they'd track him down and bring him back. And so obviously Rick is reading a book later on that's, because he talks about like a vampire, a pirate or something like that. I'm like, isn't that Sebastian? And then we turn out it is. There's literally a chapter was like saying Sebastian the Merciless. So I guess a lot of the stuff he did a long time ago. And so it's a situation of like, you kind of feel a little sympathetic because you realize like all that he did, he became the way he did because of his upbringing, being sold by his parents, like kind of growing up without love. Your environment plays a key role into, and once you become a vampire, that just gets amplified. Your emotions get amplified. So they get out of control. So, and he probably had a whole bunch of anger and hate for all the people and what they did to him. So that's probably how he looked at a lot of people. Obviously, that wasn't always the case because, once upon a time he fell in love, so kind of found himself in love again. But regardless, Landon had told him, it's like, yeah, this coming from the guy who stole a knife that basically started the apocalypse. Some people just need to be given a second chance, And so, obviously, Sebastian, I guess, feeling like he has no way of being, like, he's going to get kicked down anyway. He attacks a lady to drink her blood, but, hey, Alaric's there to kind of take him down. But it's like, and then Sebastian saying all the stuff he knows that's going to piss Alaric off. It's like, you have to kill me, because if you don't, even if you lock me up, eventually Elizabeth is going to let me loose. And the fact of the matter is, no matter how much you try to keep me away from her, we're always going to come together because I have such a hold on her. The fact of the matter is, you'll fail as a father. Only way you're going to stop this is if you kill me. We never actually see what he actually did to Sebastian. I don't think he killed Sebastian. I think he locked Sebastian back up. I don't know. Because he was willing to give Sebastian a chance. He was like, but you have to follow my rules and stuff like that. But Sebastian's kind of like, obviously because of his experience on that ship, it's like he's done following other people's orders, being adherent to what other people demanded. He's not going down that route again. So, and you see that Alaric is lying to Lizzie saying like, oh yeah, he left. Because now Lizzie's like, oh, so I guess I wasn't enough reason for him to stay. He made the choice to leave on his own. I guess like what we have, and it breaks our heart. But it's like I said, we never got to see, but I'm assuming, I guess it's meant to be kept open because like maybe Alaric, because Alaric said it himself, he can't let Sebastian go loose. So, hey, maybe he did kill him, but I feel like we would have seen that was the case. I feel like the show would have been, for us to fully know. So for us not to know makes me think, no, he's back in a coffin. So Lizzie's probably going to find out at one point, blame her dad is like, oh, you lied. Or maybe it is that he did kill him and then Lizzie finds out and that turns out, we'll see. But like I said, I'm leaning more towards he's locked up. So there's that side of things. There's a whole thing with Josie. She's doing that whole thing with all that like dark magic that was bottled up because she's like, okay, so like she looks into it and basically sees her future. She gets possessed by all that dark magic she built up, and then basically it seems like she burns the Salvatore school down. So it's like, yep, all right. But she's trying to find a way to kind of deal with the dark magic, but working with Hope, who is willing to help her out because it's like obviously she's learned from Vincent. Like the fact of the matter is, there's no way to kind of get rid of that. We have to put like a protection barrier around it, and so they work together to do it. And I thought it was kind of interesting because Josie's like, why did Clark pick me? And she's like, and he was like, and she was like, it's Hope tried to make her feel better by being like, well, the fact is you're a very trusting person, and obviously he felt like he can take advantage of it because you are also way more powerful than you think. But she's like, I don't think it was either that, because it's like anytime I use dark magic, there's something in me that kind of just gives into it, and I just kind of get angry and extra jealous and stuff like that. She's probably kind of thinking like, oh, it's something wrong with me. But Hope makes her feel better by telling her like when she came out of Malivore, the whole like, because it's something that she didn't know. It's like, oh, what made Hope go down the route she did with this whole thing is because she came back and saw them on movie night, and Hope Josie didn't know. She's like, oh. And it's like, for her to get past it, what she tried to do was she tried to move on, but obviously, as we can kind of see currently, what moving on ended up leading to. So for her, it's a situation of all they can really do is try to start new, like, because trying to move on it doesn't work out. So what we got to do is try to start this over and repair and pick up where we are, because obviously like Josie's friendship means a lot to Hope. Like that's been like, despite like the fact is that Hope kind of pushed a lot of people away. Like Josie has been, Josie's actually been a part of her life for a long time, because obviously she spent a long time at this school. So obviously because of the family connections and stuff like that between Caroline and Alaric and the Michelsons, of course, like they kind of, they definitely would grow up together and everything, And once again, they literally grew up together. So, that friendship is something to hold on to. So, but what I think is kind of the beautiful thing is, with all of this, Hope, Josie, and Landon are all kind of together, like them being kind of like a triangle. And that's going to be really interesting in itself, of like, here's the witch. Here's this very powerful witch. Here's this phoenix, and here's this triumvirate. So I think that's an interesting triangle in its own. But for them, Landon, talking about the fact is that, with that whole Sebastian situation and not being able to do anything, he feels, kind of powerless, and he wants to be able to help. He said he was okay with being a sidekick, but he kind of isn't. But I'm curious, like I said, I'm curious to see how that situation ends up getting remedied. But like I said, it was just kind of a nice, heartwarming moment of her kind of hugging both of them. It's just that it was a nice embrace and everything. So there's that. There's also the angle of like, oh yeah, like that protection spell they whipped up won't last forever. Eventually, that dark magic is going to break out. Despite what they try to do, there's no stopping it. So we got to we're giving ourselves enough time to find another solution. So while that's all going down, we get a full recap of understanding how the necromancer got to where he is. We find out he got resurrected as a human, because it's like, oh, I'm supposed to be free from Malivore. And then that begs the question, like, if you're free, that does beg the question, like, where are the other creatures that got freed last season? The ones that were supposed to get rid of the three pieces, the three seals and everything. Like, one being the djinn, obviously one being the knife and everything. So I'm like, what happened to those other, creatures? I guess they got freed as well, but he's here as human, and he's like, why did the Malivore do this to me? I'm supposed to be at peace. And I love the fact is, he's not only human, he's also got no powers, and he's working in like an ice cream shop, and he gets buddied up with Chad, and it's like him and Chad become good. He's like, I am the Necro. I'm the Ted. I'm Ted. And it's like he's so defeated. He's trying to bring back a cockroach, but it seems little by little he is bringing him back. And it's like, oh, Chad is like, yeah, but this and that. And like Chad's talking to him. It's like, wait, you believe me? He's like, yeah. And it's like, the necromancer making a buddy and everything. It's so cool. And it's just kind of like, yeah, let's, the power over life and death, and it's just like Chad's kind of going along with. He's like, you shall be my acolyte. And Chad's like, yeah, what is an acolyte? It's like, it's basically a fancy word for follower. And it's like, yeah, Chad is all for it. And I just love us skipping around that, situation. So little by little, but his power's out of control because he remembers. It's like, right, he forgot something. He's like, yeah, there was something I'm forgetting. He couldn't remember Hope at the time. And so he was getting frustrated because none of his powers were working and stuff like that. So it's kind of like, why did Malivore do this to me? But it's like, and I love that you see him kind of a mess. He's drinking beer. He's kind of, he's like so broken. It's like, oh, what's the point? He's eating a tub of ice cream. He's like, and Chad's like, you know what we should do? We should go to that pit where Malivore is and piss in it and make him see who's the boss. And then, the necromancer, Ted, is like, yeah. And they go there to go piss in it, but it's like, oh, obviously it's gone. But it's like, oh, Malivore can be defeated, so that means like blah, 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 I can get my powers back. But it means I need a sacrifice. So the one thing I actually care about, I'm like, no. And he kills Chad. I'm like, no, that sucks. That was your buddy. And so he does everything he can to kind of slip back into his self. He messes with his face, puts cream on it to kind of make his skin look pale, puts in contacts, cuts his head, and makes that symbol on his face, basically an Omega symbol, to make it so that he can be the necromancer again. And like literally a month later, he ends up resurrecting Chad. And he's like, you're back. And Chad's like, wait, did you kill me? He's like, I always had the intentions of bringing you back. He's like, shouldn't you have talked to me about that before? It's like, no. You should have seen the headlines, Chad. I'm like, once again, I love it. Because last time we met the necromancer, he was kind of funny as well. So it's nice to see that humor still here. So kind of slowly filling this all out. It's actually pretty interesting. I was, like I said, like understanding like, okay, so the first kill was because it needed to be brutal, because it was for the purpose, because they were in Mystic Falls, they need in a cemetery, because obviously a lot of people have died in Mystic Falls. A lot of people have died, so it was kind of the perfect place to kind of suck up some supernatural energy and stuff like that. So that's why this was kind of like the base ground. And so slowly but surely, but then it's like everything with the kids and everything, which Chad, even despite all this, Chad was kind of with everything, but then it's like, wait, we're going to be murdering people? He wasn't down for that from the very beginning, and then it's like, now you're telling me we're murdering kids? Hell no. And Chad tries to kill the necromancer. Doesn't work. Because the necromancer, because he had brought it up, he's like, wait, am I a zombie now? Because I don't, it doesn't mean you're going to control me. It totally turns out that he can control you. You're not necessarily a zombie, because we saw the zombie, but, Chad's situation is a little different. But the necromancer is like, oh yeah, like the fact is, I'm not your pal, I'm not your friend. I'm your eternal master. And then, kind of makes him bow to him. And it's like, and then it clicks into it. And I love Chad being like, this is why Malivore did what he did to you. It brought you back as a human. It was trying to give you what you wanted. You wanted peace. It actually tried to give you that opportunity. Like, if you had actually given it a chance, you could have lived your life as a human and actually found peace. But you were so obsessed with going back to where you are. Here you are now. So, but for him, it's like, going back, and calls him Ted. He's like, don't ever call me that name again. I'm the necromancer. So that was interesting. Then the whole situation with Clark's body, his real body, and it's like, oh, you should have seen it. I chopped off the doppelganger's head. He's like, here you go, master. And I love that look. I'm like, wait, was that sarcasm? Don't ruin this moment right now with all that, Chad. So they use Clark's body to make an actual pit. Well, because the fact of the matter is, Clark is actually dead. Like, his body was there. His real body was there and used as a means of making a portal. But obviously, the moment his head was lopped off, because that was his soul that was there, he is dead. There's no bringing that back, which is like, it's kind of a bummer to know that happened to Clark. Like I said, it's still kind of sad, especially because he changed that end. But part of me wonders, since his head fell into Malivore, part of me, I'm curious. There might be something to that. Like, it might be enough that Malivore might resurrect him. We'll see. Maybe not. I feel like despite that sad ending, we might not be done with Clark. I don't know. Like I said, it'd be kind of just sad if all that character growth he had is just kind of gone now. Like I said, we'll see. But another monster rises from Malivore, and I guess that was what he was planning on doing. Like, opening up another portal so that he can kind of tell him, hey, come out. So it's like, okay, so these monsters aren't under Malivore's control. These are monsters he's bringing forth to be like, hey, do my bidding, because the fact is, Malivore promised you something, right? Well, the fact is, I can give you what you really want. So what he wants is that dark magic, so it can give him back, so he can become as powerful as he wants. So... But I'm curious to see what's going to happen, because eventually that's going to break. But I guess, like, the moment it ends up possessing Josie, then he can kind of still get what he wants regardless of the magic directly comes to him. Either way, that is a lot of very interesting things to keep in mind as we go forward. I am so curious to see where all this goes. Like I said, I really appreciate the fact that we kind of got that backstory like that, and so quickly, immediately being like, okay, now we reveal this in Necromancer, let's kind of explain how this all happens. But it is kind of interesting in the end that, knowing that Malivore did do that. I mean, Malivore's in this to kind of, I guess it's because it's so weird to think that Malivore, despite everything, does kind of apparently keep its promises. That's so interesting. I guess because its main thing is like, I need to, get freed. I want to kind of be my own being and stuff like that. I want my own family and stuff like that, or for my own body. You get what I'm saying? Like, it has its own reason, so I guess it's like, well, if you serve me and do right, then I have to hold up my end of the bargain. I think it's interesting to think that Malivore does that. You just kind of wouldn't think so. But like I said, it kind of puts in question, what about all the other supernatural creatures, So, well, like I said, we'll have to wait and see if that gets answered. But I'm very interested to see where all this takes us going forward. But really, that's all I want to talk about. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day, and goodbye.